Hello class, these are our Algebra 1 notes for section 222, Graphing and Writing and Graphing, Linear Inequalities from Word Problems. So we have been graphing linear inequalities. First we looked at graphing inequalities with just one variable with x on a number line, and we solved them. And now we're looking at having an x and y like we did yesterday, but now we've got word problems added into that. So our example says, suppose a cafe is purchasing coffee and tea from a supplier and they can spend up to $1,000. Coffee beans cost $12 per kilogram and tea leaves cost $8 per kilogram. Write and graph an inequality based on how much coffee and tea leaves can be purchased given the constraints. So our constraints would be, we've got those costs that we have, and then we also have like a total amount of money that we can spend as well. So I'm picturing this cafe. We're trying to buy stuff. We're buying some coffee, some tea, because we only have $1,000. If we buy more coffee, we have to buy less tea, or vice versa. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on here. So we need some variables. We know we're going to have an x and a y. I'm going to go ahead and let my coffee beans be x, just because it's listed first in the problem. And my tea leaves, I'm going to let equal y. So now I need to go ahead and see if I can figure out how to set this up. So if my coffee beans, I guess x is really not just x, it's really going to be my kilograms of coffee that I buy. And so if I buy 1 kilogram of coffee, that's $12. If I buy 2 kilograms of coffee, I would have to do 2 times 12. If I bought 3 kilograms of coffee, it'd be 3 times 12. So basically what I'm getting at is I'm multiplying my cost, my $12 per kilogram, times my number of kilograms. So my cost for coffee is going to be 12x. So I'm totaling up all my costs. I want to write a plus sign here. And y is going to be my kilograms of tea. So same thing here. If I have $8 per kilogram and I have y kilograms, it's going to be 8y. And now spend up to $1,000. So up to $1,000 means I can spend $1,000, I can spend $900, but I can't spend more than $1,000. $1,000 is the maximum I have budgeted. So this means less than or equal to $1,000. So let's go ahead and add that in. So there's different ways of graphing. We have the solve for y method, where we look for y equals mx plus b. And we graph using our y-intercept and our slope. We also have our intercepts method, which is what we kind of like sometimes when we're in standard form, where we find our x-intercept and our y-intercept. So let's just see what happens here when we solve for y. So I would subtract 12x on both sides and zero that out. 8y is less than or equal to negative 12x plus 100. And then I would divide everything by 8. So negative 12/8 would be really a negative, let's see, divide the top and bottom by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So negative 3/2 x plus, and then I'd have to do 100 divided by 8 on my, actually it's 1,000, right? It's 1,000. Good thing I caught that. So now we've got to do 1,000 divided by 8. And that's 125. So I think what gets tricky about this is how do I make my scale, and can I do my scale in such a way that I can do down 3/2 with such a big y-intercept? And that's going to be a really difficult thing to graph. So I think that is the disadvantage to using this method, is you have to have nice numbers. So what I'm noticing here when I counted out my scale earlier, if I want my y's to be able to go up to 125, I really need to count off by tens. So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm only labeling every other line because that's what I have space for. $110, $130. So 125 is going to be somewhere in here. So the issue is when I have something like this and now I've got a slope that's negative 3/2, it becomes really, really difficult to make an accurate graph. So we're much better off for something like this where there's big numbers and it's standard form to just use our intercept method. So our intercept method when something's in standard form is to find an x-intercept by letting our y equal 0 and then our y-intercept by letting x equal 0. So if I'm finding my x-intercept, that means I'm putting a 0 in for y. So I have 12x plus 8 times 0. And because we're trying to find points on the line, I'm going to write equals 1,000. And 8 times 0 is 0. So we end up with 12x equals 1,000. We divide both sides by 12. And 1,000 divided by 12, using a calculator here, not going to lie, is 83 and a third. So I'm going to call that 83.3. So because my y was 0 and my x was 83.3, that means I have the point 83.3, comma 0. And I could go ahead and graph that. I'm going to do the same trick for my x-axis. That's going to be, what is x? X is kilograms of coffee. So let's go ahead and label it kilograms of coffee. And I'm going to count that one off by tens as well. I could probably stretch the scale out a little bit and count the scale by fives instead, but my problem is I think sometimes it's easier to have an x and a y scaled the same way. So 83.3, so if I have 70 here and 90 here, 80 is in the middle, 83.3 is right here. All right, so, and this one was kilograms of t. I know I already have a y-intercept, but I do want to show you the y-intercept using this other method. So to find my y-intercept now, I'm going to let x equal 0, even though I already know my y-intercept from my earlier work. I'm going to just solve it anyway. So if I put 0 in for x, I have 12 times 0 plus 8y equals 1,000, which means 8y equals 1,000. Divide by 8, y equals 125. And so our x equals 0, our y equals 125. That's going to be the ordered pair 0, comma 125. And that's that point that I already drew on my graph based on my y-intercept from the earlier work. So what I need to do at this point is go ahead and connect these 2 points. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm connecting my x-intercept and my y-intercept. And I know this line is not perfectly accurate, but for a word problem like this, I really think it makes the most sense. If I had smaller numbers, if I had something like -3 halves x plus 10, that'd be easy. But for using a scale like this, it's really difficult to do using y equals mx plus b. So our intercept method was really the way to go on this. All right, last step is I know I need to shade. And because I can spend no more than $1,000, right? I can spend up to $1,000 only. I'm going to be shading underneath my graph on this. So anywhere under that line is going to be a solution. On the line is going to be equals 1,000. Under the line is less than. And if I look at points above the line, that's going to be greater than. Let's go back through, make sure we answered all of our questions. Let's see, we wrote an inequality. Our inequality was right here. Right, so here's an inequality that represented the situation, and then we also graphed it. So we're all set. I hope this helps you understand word problems a little bit better. As always, if you have questions, please make sure you're asking for help.